Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
Family dinners in the Robertson household had always felt like courtrooms. My brother Arthur presiding as judge, jury, and executioner, and the rest of us mere spectators. That evening, the air was heavy with the scent of roasted lamb and a tension that no candlelight could soften. Arthur was in rare form, boasting about his latest victory in court. "Another $1 million client retained," he announced, raising his glass. Some of us know how to seize opportunity. The table erupted in approving laughter. I forced a polite smile, though the knot in my stomach tightened. Then came the questions, sharp as knives disguised as small talk. "Cecilia," Aunt Lydia chimed, still managing that little property job, "doesn't it feel limiting?" Arthur smirked, leaning back in his chair. "She's always had small ambitions, but not everyone can be exceptional, I suppose." Heat rushed to my cheeks, and I looked down at my plate. I opened my mouth to speak, but my father cut in, chuckling. "Arthur's right, he's always had the drive. Cecilia, you could learn a thing or two." Their laughter blended into a cruel chorus. My mother sipped her wine, silent as always. That silence, her silence, stabbed deeper than their words. I whispered, almost to myself, "Why is it always a competition? Why must I always be measured against him?" No one answered. My voice dissolved into the clatter of forks and the hum of Arthur's self-satisfaction. When dessert was served, I excused myself early, my chest tight with unshed tears. As I walked out into the cool night air, I realized this wasn't just about dinner. It was about a lifetime of shadows. Shadows Arthur cast, and shadows my family let consume me. From the day I could walk, Arthur was already running ahead. Every milestone of his life was a headline in our family. Harvard debate champion, law school prodigy, partner at a prestigious firm before 35. And me, I was the afterthought. At every holiday gathering, the same script repeated. Aunt Lydia's voice, always pitched like a trumpet. "Arthur just closed another multi-million-dollar case. Isn't he remarkable?" Then the inevitable turn, the sympathetic tilt of heads, the forced smile toward me. "And Cecilia, you're still at that little property job, aren't you?" "Yes," I would answer softly, forcing a smile while my throat tightened. "Still at it." What they never understood was that I loved it. Walking through old buildings, running my hand along worn banisters, studying market trends, it was a world that fascinated me. But fascination wasn't a currency my family valued. Arthur made sure of that. He managed one of Grandma's properties, and with that role came power. He set my rent at a so-called family discount. When the heater failed in winter, I shivered through nights while he smirked. "You should be grateful. Most people your salary can't live here at all." I still remember the sting of that sentence, the laughter of relatives nodding along. One evening, cornered in the kitchen, I whispered to my mother, "Why does he treat me like this?" She avoided my eyes. "He's only trying to push you, dear. He wants you to be stronger." Stronger. The word lodged in my chest like a shard of glass. I cried quietly that night, not from the broken heater, but from the broken silence of my parents. They never defended me, not once. And the more Arthur triumphed, the smaller I felt, until the day Grandma pressed a business card into my hand and whispered, "Sometimes the quiet ones are the smartest. Remember that when the time comes." That moment, though I didn't yet understand it, planted a seed of salvation. The family dinner that changed everything began like any other. China gleaming, crystal glasses filled with wine, Arthur's booming laughter carrying over everyone else's voices. I sat at the far end of the table, my hands folded tightly in my lap, praying for invisibility. Arthur stood, straightening the lapels of his immaculate suit. His voice carried the ease of authority he'd worn all his life. He cleared his throat and tapped his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, standing tall like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "I've decided it's time for Cecilia to start paying real-world rent. Effective next month, it will triple, $7,500. The room erupted in laughter as though it were a grand joke. But Arthur didn't laugh. He looked at me with a smirk, eyes glinting. "That's what successful people pay, isn't it, Cecilia?" I felt every drop of blood drain from my face. "Arthur, that's impossible. You know my salary. Why would you?" "Why?" He cut me off sharply. Because you've coasted long enough. Time to stop living under the family discount. Laughter rippled again, but it was crueler now, barbed with mockery. My father chuckled. Arthur's right, she'll manage. My mother avoided my gaze, sipping her wine. I whispered, my voice breaking, you're all laughing while he crushes me. Silence followed, but not a single hand reached out. Not one word rose to shield me. Their silence hurt worse than Arthur's taunts ever could. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. Instead, I stood, my chair scraping sharply against the polished floor. If this is what family looks like, I said, my voice trembling, then maybe I've been blind all along. Arthur only smirked wider. Then maybe it's time you finally opened your eyes. Deep inside, where my secret pulsed steady and strong, a flicker of calm stirred. They didn't know. Arthur didn't know. For 3 years I had carried the weight of truth in silence. Tonight I almost smiled, not from joy, but from the knowledge that his arrogance would soon unravel. And as I looked at my brother's triumphant face, I whispered inwardly, your time is coming, Arthur. Sooner than you think. The following week, Arthur summoned me to his office as if I were one of his clients, not his sister. The polished mahogany desk, the towering shelves of legal volumes, it was his stage, and he relished every detail. A thick stack of papers sat waiting. Arthur leaned back in his chair, his tone sharp and deliberate. Here's the new lease, $7,500, signed by you within 48 hours. Otherwise, you'll be out on the street. I stared at the papers, my fingers trembling. Arthur, this isn't business. This is cruelty. I'm your sister. His lips curled. Sisters don't pay bills. Tenants do. And you're a tenant, nothing more. I swallowed hard, my throat aching with unspoken words. For a moment I thought of pleading, but then I remembered the laughter at the dinner table, the silence of my parents, the years of being dismissed. The tears stung, but they did not fall. Instead, I whispered, you really believe you hold all the power, don't you? Arthur smirked, sliding the pen across the desk toward me. I don't believe Cecilia, I know. That was when the door opened and in walked Ms. Astrid, my attorney, her presence calm yet commanding. She set a folder on the desk with quiet precision. Actually, she said evenly, you're mistaken, Mr. Robertson. This building hasn't belonged to you for years. Arthur's smirk faltered. What is this? Astrid opened the folder, revealing the deed. My name, shielded behind a holding company, stared back at him. 3 years ago, your grandmother entrusted Cecilia with the funds. She's the legal owner. You, Arthur, are the tenant. For once, Arthur had no words. His face drained of color as silence swallowed the room. I looked at him then, my tormentor, my brother, and for the first time I felt the scales of power shift. And I knew the decree would be mine. The news spread through the building like wildfire. I was the owner. And the new rent was set. $15,000. Arthur stormed into the lobby days later, his parents trailing behind, faces pale with disbelief. You can't do this, Arthur barked, slamming his fist against the counter. We're family. I met his rage with calm. Family doesn't humiliate one another at dinner tables. Family doesn't crush their own with silence. My voice wavered, but I held steady. You wanted me out. Now it's you who must leave. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. Cecilia, please. I shook my head gently. I begged for your voices once. You chose silence. Now, so must I. Arthur's fury sputtered into a hollow glare as he turned away, his expensive shoes echoing on the marble floor. For the first time in years, I felt taller than him. That night I walked through the halls, every light switch, every stair creak a reminder. This place was mine. No applause, no thunderous triumph, just a quiet, steady victory. I pressed my hand against the wall and whispered through tears that finally fell, I'm free. Months later, the building thrived under my care. Tenants who once feared Arthur's arrogance now stopped me in the halls with smiles, thanking me for repairs long ignored. I had transformed stone and wood into a sanctuary, and in the process I had rebuilt myself. Arthur sent letters, apologies dressed as negotiations, but I never replied. My silence, at last, was strength. On quiet evenings, I'd sit by the window, watching the city lights shimmer like distant stars. For the first time, I felt whole. Grandma was right. Sometimes the quiet ones are the strongest.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.